So today I really want to talk about our connection with ourself and also communication. So I really want to talk about how important communication is and how it can be really empowering when we can really communicate clearly what we need. And so I'll give you an example. An example is I I had an agreement to work with somebody in a certain way, and I was going to offer something and they were going to offer something. And then life kind of got crazy and there was like some stickiness in that, and kind of like not as much attention on the things that were, supposed to be offered to each other. And so it kind of like in my heart, I felt like I should just reach out and say something because I want to feel supported, and I want it to feel like a really good connection and relationship. And so I reached out to this person and just expressed how I was feeling. And it was so well received, and they really appreciated me reaching out. And it was kind of like something that maybe a couple years ago would have been really uncomfortable for me to speak up about. But because I've done so much inner softening and journey inward and empowerment in myself, it was actually quite easy because it was very clear of like, I need to express my needs and where I'm at in this situation. And it was not only really well received and really appreciated, but it just felt so good to reconnect in that way and feel supported. So sometimes, when we think about like connecting with somebody and we still are kind of in like the people pleaser or like the fear based or like what are they going to think of me space, then we can go like against honoring ourselves and what we really need, because then maybe we are scared to speak up, and it's okay if you feel that way too. And also, the more we can connect into ourself and our truth and really what is supportive for us, the easier it can be to communicate our needs with others. And the less we're going to feel like, oh, maybe I'm a burden to them, or I don't want to like, um, put pressure on them, things like that. It's actually really empowering for us to be able to speak up and then to be received. And if we're not received, well, when we speak up in our communication, then there's probably information there as well. So, communication is so, so important, and all types of communication. And I personally think that texting, communication through texting or emails, um, are a little impersonal and can get a little bit, like the tone maybe isn't always perceived. And if one person's feeling angry but the other one's not, the text message could be received totally incorrectly, with how the person is actually. Yeah, hi for those of you who are joining live. I can't see it on my computer when you're joining live, so I appreciate you being here. So when we're sending like text messages, we definitely like can't always portray like the emotion and the energy behind the message. So I always like leaving voice text personally if you can't call the person, because then you can at least express your tone through your communication, and then the other person can receive it. Also, something really important to remember with communication is that I think it's really important to communicate when we're not feeling super triggered and activated, right? So, like somebody says something to us over a text message or a message or something, and all of a sudden we're like feeling really angry about it, or we're like, why did they say this? And we're kind of like a little bit charged. The invitation would be that there's no urgency in responding. I mean, unless there is, and that's okay, but to take a little bit of time, to take some space, let that sit, let the reaction of the trigger kind of settle, and then respond from a neutral place. And so this is so, so important, because oftentimes, like, when we're activated, we're like, like, and then And then our message can come off a little bit harsh. And then even later, if you've ever done this, I used to do this all the time. But if you've ever done this and you've ever sent something out of that reactive place, and then later you're like, oh my gosh, why did I send this? Like I could have said it this way, which would have been so much nicer and more gentle and like more respectful and like really who I am. So the invitation is like in communication that do it from a place of groundedness and neutrality. So if something is activating, like taking a couple hours or even taking a day if you have that space and like responding, the clarity will come for the response and the communication when it's time. When you've kind of settled, let it go, kind of move through whatever the activation was, and then you'll know exactly how to respond that will feel really good and it will be really well received on the other end. So I want to share that because communication, so I'm a Gemini rising, so I'm a Cancer sun, and I have a lot of Cancer in my chart. Very watery, very airy also, and I'm a Gemini rising. And so communication is something I'm like really naturally good at. And so maybe you have some communication signs in your chart that are really supportive, and maybe you don't, and maybe communication is challenging for you. I would love to hear like where you're at in communication, if it's something that comes natural for you or if it's something that's challenging for you. And then of course, depending on what's happening energetically and collectively and in our own life, like it can be different, and it's different with different people. Right? We can communicate differently with different people. So I'll give an example of this. So one family member, and I'm not gonna, for personal reasons, I'm not gonna like disclose who these people are, but one family member, I have a really easy time like speaking up for myself and really expressing my needs, and I know I'm gonna be really well received. The other family member, it's a little bit more challenging for me to like really speak my needs, and maybe there's like I'm a little like there's a little bit of fear, or because of their own internal processes, I feel like I have to be like a little more cautious. And it's just something I've noticed that I'm working through of like, oh, well, I notice it's different with this person and this person, and I want to be able to be like my full authentic self in front of anybody, right? Like that is really where I'm going to be. And so that pattern that was expressing, it's like, okay, well, I got to learn like that it's okay, and maybe the words I use or the way I speak will be a little bit different, but I'm not like catering to this person because it might upset them, right? It's just like sometimes like I speak to people in different ways, like I can definitely open up to people that I'm closer with in other ways, but I'm not changing who I am based on the person, and sometimes it's really easy to do this when it's somebody we're uncomfortable around. But it's like we want to notice those patterns and continue to like break those down and really be able to show up in our full authentic way, no matter like who we're talking to or who we're expressing to. And the thing with that is that not everybody's going to like us. Not everybody is going to agree with what we're saying, and that's okay. And coming back to like the theme and the piece on communication is that when we're communicating our truth, we are empowering ourselves. We are saying yes to ourselves. And some people are going to receive it well, some people it's going to activate. But ultimately, it's going to be better for our own embodiment, our own health, our own vitality when we're really honoring what we need and we're able to speak up and express it. So I just wanted to share that. I would love to hear. It comes naturally to me, but I'm leaning to keep my emotions in check. Yes, exactly. So sometimes it's like, yeah, really easy to communicate, but then when we have these big emotions, it's also easy to kind of like have like overly emotion in our communication. So that's where we can come back into that like centeredness and not speak from that reactive place, right? I think of like, when we think of like the emotion anger, right? We can feel anger and say I feel anger. Like I feel really angry right now. And you would never know that I'm feeling anger by the tone of my voice because I'm not reacting to the anger. You know, I'm expressing it in a really neutral way, which sometimes is really hard to do because sometimes we just want to rage out and scream and throw things and, and those can be supportive sometimes, but ultimately like we don't want to like invite in unnecessary violence and things like that when we're feeling anger because it's something internally that we can really honestly process by just like being with it, being present with it. We don't have to necessarily like externally react to what's internal. So I feel like I feel like I could talk about this for hours and hours. Probably like this is a big topic when we think about like the layers of communication and emotions and reactions and things like that. But for these little short lives, I will keep it there for now. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was supportive. If you have any questions or thoughts, or you want me to share anything on these calls, please definitely connect with me and let me know if you're watching the replay as well. Have a beautiful Tuesday.